You already know what it is. It's another Monday. And look, I got someone special in the house. Man, I've been excited for this one. You don't gotta be perfect, you just gotta get started. Don't overthink it. Just go where your heart is, turn your dreams and your goals. Let your goals shape how you live. Success is inevitable if you're willing to give up your own self to become someone new, to be the true you. This is what success looks like in hospitals. But we're gonna go into that. People holding their grudges, appreciate the hate. It comes with the winning. When your wife making up money, you're unstoppable from the beginning. Your excuses are useless. Let your actions be part of the solution. And watch the income it produces. Recognize greatness, a supreme revelation. Here's a blood, sweat, and tears to become an overnight sensation. Can't do it alone. I should have said this first. Teamwork always makes the dream work. Teamwork always makes the dream work. Yes, yes, yes. It's another Monday. If you don't have to be perfect. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a superstar on our hands with us. I've been blessed to say that I know a lot of people. And every one of our guests prior to this, I have known personally. But this guest today, I've had to hear and people cheer about her great work, about her story, about her commitment to healthcare. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Veronica Gonzalez.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, man, I am truly so excited to have you here. Like, first of all, your team loves you. Like,
I
I
love that.
love how your team made sure that I was going to handle you with
Uh,
care. And I promised them that I was here to celebrate you.
Thank you.
And I truly am. Like, Miss Gonzalez, you know, you are what our community needs, right? And if no one else tells you that,
Thank you.
let me state it out loud. You are what our community needs, right? One of the things that we talk about is leveraging your superheroes,
Mm.
right? And everyone has a superhero or a success story that they need to see. You are something that young Latina women can now model after.
Thank you. That's deep. Yeah.
You know, and before we
Thank
told her
you.
whole story, I wanted to give her
Oh,
flowers,
thank you. I
right?
appreciate that.
Because when other people are telling your story before you get in the room,
Mm.
and people are going, you haven't interviewed Veronica, you don't know Veronica, and these are in different spaces and places. And then, you know, I do events, so I see your people out passing out flyers, interacting with our community, and doing the most important thing, telling people they can get access to health.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now that I've given you guys why I'm loving this, right? How did you get here? We are now able to provide free health care to your community.
How much time we have? I mean, how far back you want me to go?
You tell us where you want to start.
I think my whole trajectory of my life kind of came full circle to the moment of where I am today. So I'll go back. I mean, I was born in Puerto Rico, moved here to the Valley when I was 6 years old. Actually, we moved to the Bronx, New York, from Puerto Rico with my
Okay.
grandmother,
Harlem. I'm from Harlem. So.
just for a couple of weeks
Okay.
through summer.
Okay, you stayed
And
by the
yeah,
neighborhood. Okay.
we lived in a high rise there with my grandmother, her one bedroom apartment, my three siblings, and my mom and I. And within summer, my mom said this isn't going to work. In terms of raising the kids there in the city, she was struggling. So Her sister lives outside Bethlehem
Okay.
in Salt Terrace, and I said, "Come stay with us." My titi Noris, rest in peace. She passed away from breast cancer, and
God
she
rest her.
was the convener, the one that kept the family always together. We always did all our celebrations there, but she took us in, and we moved in with her in Southside Bethlehem, and that's where my journey in the valley began. Very similar to the community we serve today. We face our language barriers with moving here from Puerto Rico, only spoke the language of Spanish, cultural barriers, socioeconomic barriers, just like the community we serve today. And I want to say within 2 years, we got public housing in Pembroke. And eventually, my dad moved in with us and learned the English language, and he started working. And we got a house back in the south side of Bethlehem, and grew up, I would say, pretty normal in terms of a sense of community and love.
I want to park there for a moment.
Yeah.
Because you are now the CEO, correct?
Yes. Yes.
You're the CEO of a health partner group, right?
Yes. Yes.
And did you hear what she said? They came from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
You went through Pembroke, so
Yeah.
you had some project time.
Yeah. I had more project time after later, but yes.
Man? And I just want people to hear how far you've risen.
Yeah.
But like I said, throw your cape, or let me put it on you. But you are somebody. You're going to
Yeah.
inspire somebody today. Let's go. Keep going.
Yes. So yeah, from there, eventually, as my dad learned the language, we got our house in Southside Bethlehem, and I always say I grew up a pretty normal life, but despite the socioeconomic barriers, now as I'm older, I realize, oh my gosh, we had nothing, and I grew up really poor, but I never felt that way when I was younger, because I had so much love and this sense of community, and so I believe wholeheartedly in the power of community. And that's why, I always tell the story of the work I do now at Valley Health Partners as a community health center is, many of the folks that we serve also face a lot of those barriers that I serve. And we as a community health center can wrap around them and support them in the ways I was supported growing up, and look where I'm at today. So in my story, lots of power in community. So certainly growing up, like I said, despite us moving from my aunt's house, we then lived in South 4th Street, then in Pembroke, then we got the house in Southside for a few years. My sophomore year in high school, my parents split up. I moved back in public housing with my mom in South Terrace in Southside Bethlehem. I was pregnant my senior year in high school. So my daughter was 3 weeks old at my high school graduation. And then on my 18th birthday, I actually got housing here in Allentown, right on 12th Street, with CareNet, which is a Christian organization that helps a lot of single moms. And so I got housing there. Within 8 months, they helped me get housing in the Hanover Acres in Allentown, now Overlook Park, but back then was the Hanover Acres. And so, grew up here in this community at a time where I was a single mom. I was trying to find my way. Went to Northampton Community College right out of high school, because one thing about me, I always loved school. I loved education. In my senior year when I was pregnant, I still remember my high school, they dropped me from college preparatory classes to apply because I was pregnant. And the teachers within 3 weeks said, this girl doesn't belong in my class. And the guidance counselors put me in. They're like, hey, how do you feel about going back to college prep? You're expecting. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And I never missed school. I remember the week before graduation, they called me in and said, hey, you don't need to come for your finals next week. We've never had a team on that never missed school, had good grades. We'll see you at graduation. And so, went to Northampton Community College, worked on weekends, had everything, Title 20, food stamps, the system. I love the system when it works right in the right way.
Yes.
Where at that time, that's what helped me get by with my daughter. And so full circle, loved healthcare.
I love it. Let me throw another cape on her. Like single mom, like there's you've overcome so many obstacles.
Yeah.
Right, there are so many reasons where and how you could have given up.
Yeah.
Right, 18 years old and pregnant. I give up. Come on over from into a country. Even though Puerto Rico is a part of the United States. You
Mhm.
know, we don't speak English there. So coming over and speaking another language, I give up. You know, my parents split up in the middle, and I know
Mm,
I give up. There's so many times you could have given up,
yeah.
but you kept pushing. You kept moving forward. Like I said, put some capes on. You know, I'm inspired. Yes.
Oh, no, you know what? My daughter, she gave me this new fire. Like, there was for me, I wanted to provide for her. I wanted to give her a better future. And that lit a fire in me that I can't explain. So her dad went to prison when I was 8 months pregnant. Um, and so for me, I was mom and dad. Like I took that really seriously. And so I knew further my education was important. I've always had my older sister who, at that time, had graduated from Penn State, Maine. She was first generation college in my family. And I remember she got a great job right out of college, had bought a brand new home in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. She was traveling to Egypt and, Europe, and would send me pictures. And I was living in the Hanover Acres, and I'll tell you, I loved living in the Hanover Acres. Like, I lived in the circle. I loved all my neighbors. I have
Yes.
friends that are still my friends till this day. I never felt safer in this community, but I also could see the life my sister was living, and I'm like, I want this, and I want this for my daughter. My sister took my daughter to Disney World for the first time. She's her godmother as well. I couldn't afford that for my daughter, but she still got that experience. But it was a push for me, and my sister really instilled in me the importance of education. No one can take that from you, and further your education. And so I'm so thankful that I always had that fire in me as well to continue my education. And I always loved healthcare. So I worked part time at an eye doctor's office right out of high school. I used to love going to the doctor's office with my mom, so I was an interpreter for her, right? My mom doesn't speak English until this day. So I was always her interpreter, and I just loved the feeling in the doctor's office. I'm like, I want to work in a doctor's office one day. So that's kind of how healthcare came, for me in terms of a career path, but I didn't know what I wanted to do in healthcare. So I joined Northampton Community College and joined healthcare administration fields because when I met with the counselors, I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a nurse, a doctor. I like the office setting. So she's like, then do healthcare administration. Um, graduated from Northampton. I remember doing a research paper right before graduating on the health systems in the area and landed that I wanted to work at LVHN. So I started putting my applications there, and I got my first interview as a secretary of the Rehab Services Department at Lehigh Valley Health Network. And I got the offer. So that's when I started in the network back in 2005. And really, the network is where a lot of doors opened for me once I started the healthcare journey. Worked in as the secretary for about 9 months, and at that time, the network started their interpreter services department. So that department they stood up, which in credit to the network is pretty progressive. Not all health systems have departments like that where they have live trained medical interpreters. Often folks have telephonic, video remote. They committed to having live medical interpreters. And so the department happened to be right across the hall from my rehab department. And so I was caught illegally interpreting because I had not been trained through the formality that exists to assess language proficiency. And I remember them pulling me aside. And they're like, hey, you got to go through our program. You can't interpret for the therapist unless you've gone through the program where they've assessed your language proficiency. And I thought to myself, my God, I've interpreted for my mom my whole life. Like, what do you mean I got to go through a program? And once I went through the program, I had a whole new appreciation for the importance of a medical interpreting program because you're the voice of the patient, of the provider. Just using the raw medical terminology can change the path of testing of outcomes for that patient. And I enjoyed those 40 hours of training to become a trained medical interpreter. And they happened to have an opening afterwards and asked if I would consider. And so I became a full-time medical interpreter for the hospital. It was in that role that I found another fire in me to give back to the community and to have a voice for the community that had been there for me since I could remember. Because I saw a lot as a medical interpreter, unfortunately. I'm at the bedside of patients in many settings where you're seeing the healthcare disparities firsthand. And for me, those patients, my mom, my neighbors, I was living in the acres. And so I was very passionate as a medical interpreter, helping the patient navigate the system, helping the provider not feel like language was a barrier.
Yeah.
And so, providers would request me or ask my boss, can I write a letter of recommendation? And I remember my big boss brought me in one day and said, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I'm a single mom. I'm still getting, food stamp help. I'm in public housing. I'm on survival mode. I had not taken a step back, but I was still in school because my sister was telling me, you got to finish your school. Had I really thought about my path? No. And so he said, what are you passionate about? And I said, I can tell you I'm passionate about the community I'm serving as an interpreter. Here are the things I see. Here's what I would love to see differently. And he said to me, then have you thought about leadership? No, not in my wildest dreams did I think about leadership. And he said, Veronica, you're handling single mom. You have head of household. You're coming here. I don't get phone calls like this. And if you're not interested in being a doctor or nurse, which I knew at that, because as an interpreter, if I saw blood, I had to look the other way. So my heart went out to all our clinicians, but not for me. And so he said, you're finishing your bachelor's in business. Why don't you think about leadership? Here are some career paths in the physician hospital side. A lot of the leaders, nurses, and doctors. So he's like, a physician group, it's more on the business side. And he kind of went through the job postings with me, and he's like, this is office coordinator is an entry level, type of supervisory role that you could consider to start to get your leadership experience. And then eventually you can get to a point where you can have a voice in a meaningful way to the community you're so passionate about. And I remember calling my sister that night, who obviously has always been like a mentor for me. And she's like, this is great. You should ask him to be your mentor. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, he's already a successful leader in the organization, understands how to do things. He sees your potential. Why don't you ask him to be your mentor? So she helps me draft the email. And so I asked him to be my mentor. And eventually I did land my first office coordinator position in the network at Lehigh Neurology. Which I loved. Lehigh Neurology. It was my first kind of practice operations and leading. I worked in the practice before an eye doctor's office, but leading people I loved. I just love people in general. I see the good in people always. So I really enjoyed leading, and then practice operations was just my jam. And that leader stood as my mentor, kind of helping me figure out my first leadership role and what that looked like. And so I was in neurology for about 3 years, and I happened to have gone through my bachelor's program through the West Coast School of Muhlenberg College. I think now it's called Muhlenberg College School of Studies or something. But at the time it was the West Coast School, and that's an adult learning program. And so you're actually, in my cohort, I was with other adults who already worked at the network and were in leadership roles. And one of the leaders I met there knew I was an interpreter when I was part of the program, and she knew about my passion. She knew I joined neurology. And I always said, keep me in mind if anything comes up at 17th Street, because while I was an interpreter at Cedar Crest and Muhlenberg Hospital, 17th Street was where the community I was passionate about received all their outpatient care. I was there more for their acute care as an interpreter. And so she happened to work at 17th Street, and I'm like, never forget me if anything comes up, And so one day I got a call, and she said, hey, there's an opportunity. You should apply at 17th Street as director of Centro de Salud, which is an adult internal medicine clinic at 17th Street. It's now under Valley Health Partners, and as director of interpreter services for the network, which is really cool because I used to be an interpreter. So I'm like, this is my dream job. I have to go for it, which I did land. And, I left neurology. As much as I love neuro, I wanted to give back to serving the community I'm so passionate about. So 2011, I landed at the 17th Street campus as the director of Centro de Salud, interpreter services. And 17th Street was just everything I had hoped for, because I was now in a space with others who were just as passionate about the community as I am. We spoke the same language. There wasn't a need to kind of that push-pull, to help folks understand kind of where I was coming from, because I came from those lived experiences. And so these were my people, and I just love the mission that was at 17th Street, so community-based. So I grew from there at 17th Street. I then became director of Center for Women's Medicine. Then I was the administrator overseeing all the community practices at 17th Street. And in my time there, I was looking to develop a strategy for our most vulnerable community members. And myself, other leaders in the organization, a strong commitment. I could see it, right? I could see the commitment at the highest level of the network of they want to do what's right for our community. But I wasn't seeing billboards of the community practices, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so what's the future for us? And so they engaged a consulting firm to work with me for a few weeks to help develop a strategy for our most vulnerable community members, which I'm forever thankful for. And those folks spent 6 weeks with me. And after the 6 weeks, they said, you guys operate like a federally qualified health center. And in full transparency, I said, what is that?
That's
I had
awesome.
never heard of an FQHC. Now, we had a local FQHC for a long time in this
Mm-hmm.
community who I've actually worked with,
Mm-hmm.
just never realized they were an FQHC.
Yeah.
And so as we learned about the model, and actually the network sent me to Chicago to a conference to learn about it. And I came back and I said, I'm leaning to an FQHC. We're not doing this. Like, who knew there was a national movement on providing care to the most vulnerable, and infrastructure that allows you to do it in a meaningful way? And so the stars aligned, praise God, and they decided to stand up an FQHC, which is now Valley Health Partners. And maybe I was at the right place at the right time. I was asked to step in as CEO, which I originally said no.
Really?
Yes. Because I wanted the right person for the job. Just as that's just as much as I cared about the community and the people who work there, because our people, man.
That's why you were the right one.
And my boss at the time, she knew me. She gave me the time to think about it, and she's the best boss ever. And we were on a flight back. We had gone to a conference, long flight back, 5 hours, and she had this beautiful long talk with me about what if someone else comes in who doesn't care as much, has different philosophies. What would that look like? And so I took the leap of faith. No regrets.
and we are so glad that you have, and really, and I'm so glad you shared your story. And there's a couple of parts of your story I want to rewind back. First, big shout out to Big Sis.
Yes, she's
right.
The best.
Big shout out to Big Sis, right? Because you said first to graduate in your family. So I was the first in my family to graduate. So I know what that looks like to light a path to greatness. Because my youngest brother is still the best of us all. So I get it. So big shout to Big Sis for not only lighting a light, but being able to continue to guide, right? Never leading you.
Yes.
I had a great friend that said it never hurts a candle to light another candle. Right, so Big Sis lit that candle, but she made sure that fire never burnt out. So big shout out to Big Sis. You want to give her a shout out to her name?
I love you, Cindy. She knows.
All right,
she's the best.
Cindy. All right, we want to give a big shout out to Big Sis. And then you also said you asked for mentorship, which is something that we don't do enough of. My mentor George Fraser says, a wise person knows what they know. They know what they don't know. They know. But more importantly, they know what they don't know. They don't know. And you're only going to figure that out through mentorship. So
I always say I have these angels in disguise in my life, and my mentor, he's one of them for sure. Opened up a lot of doors for me.
Yes, and then for you, for those who heard her, she said no first, right? So I think that's so important because I always say what's for me is for me, right? But what God has for me, no man can take from me, not even my life.
Right.
And I've tried a couple times to see test that theory, right? When I was younger, But you said no, but that was for you, right? So people were patient to give you the opportunity, right, to understand your mission, right? I always say that we all have a ministry, right? And a ministry doesn't always mean we're behind a pulpit, right? It doesn't always mean that we're speaking, right, only in scripture, right? But we were taught to live Christ-like, right? Not just so. So I applaud you, right? One, for being vulnerable enough to share your story, and two, for stepping into your greatness, sweetie. You know what I mean? Because it in so many times, right? I know fear was there,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That there was things to be scared of,
Yep.
especially being CEO
Mm.
of something that's now not in competition with the network, but an alternative
Mm-hmm.
to the network. There are, and I'm glad you shared your backstory because people may think, well, she's against the network. No,
Mm-mm.
you were blessed
Yes.
by the network to
Yes.
serve
Yes.
our community.
And our community needs more care than what we can provide, right? If they need to be admitted, I have to rely on the network. If they need rehab, home health care, specialists, I don't have all the specialists at Valley Health Partners. And thankfully, they do come to the table to make sure that what we're bringing forward is addressed and that our patients are getting that whole person care approach. So for me, it's always about the community. And I think everybody who knows me in the network knows that. And they appreciate that. And so they do come to the table with the
I
right
think
intentions.
the best thing that comes from this is that you came through the network and you came from this community. So when we want to let's put another cape on this young lady, right? Because seriously, one of the things that we always talk about is building bridges,
Mm.
right? The reason most things can't work in our community is because they're built on terrible foundations and they don't have solid bridges. You know, you have a real bridge to our community because what I'm telling you, it wasn't just corporate people like the hood, swore by you. Like they're like, we're so proud of her grind. We're so proud of who she is, because I'm blessed to
Yeah.
be able to serve
Yeah.
our community. Right? Like I'm really boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'm also in corporate rooms. But then I was in corporate rooms and like, you really, I didn't cross paths before. And I'm like, man. And and every time people lit up about you. So
Oh.
that means, and we're all gonna have haters.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be a hater. So I haven't met him yet, but you're gonna have one.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So don't worry about that, right? But know that enough people see what you're doing,
Yeah.
right? But and those bridges are important, right? Because we need a bridge
Mhm.
from the big health partners because they're huge now,
That's right. Yeah.
and that's not a bad thing because we
Yeah.
also need that.
Yeah.
Right? We're the third largest city in Pennsylvania,
That's right.
so we deserve a large hospital system,
Yeah.
right? But we also need your kind of people. Like when I'm telling you, the first time I met your people, they were at Salvation Army,
Mm.
uh, handling soon to be mothers. And they were, passing out pamphlets and making sure all of them were getting prenatal care. They're like, why are you videotaping us? I'm like, because I've never seen this outside. I'm like, I need this. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
we
gonna,
gotta be meet
yeah,
our people where they
yes.
are.
I'm like, I'm not videotaping you. I'm putting you on live. Like, people watching this. You know what I mean? Like, people need to know. And that was my first introduction to what you guys were doing. And then I've seen you guys in spaces and in places that show that you're trying
Yeah.
to be there. Of course, nobody can be everywhere,
Right.
you know, but you guys are going more places. So it shows that you have some connection to community because some of the places somebody has to know,
Yep.
right? You can't just always read it in the newspaper.
Yep.
You can't always just find it on
No.
Facebook.
No.
So that you
Gotta
guys,
show up.
yeah,
Can't expect people to show up if you're not showing up.
and I love that. And when I tell you, your team celebrates you, so that shows that there's a passion that comes from you.
You.
Like man, like because I think her name was Lisa. I don't want to get her name wrong.
From that baby event, we had
Yeah.
Laura there.
Laura. There we go. Laura, sorry. Please apologize. Charge it to my head, not my heart. Laura was like glowing
Oh, she's a gem.
about this. And then I'm like, okay, how do I know more? She's like, this is my card, but I can't help you. You need to know this person and that person so you can get the story. And I love that not only did they play their part, they didn't overplay a part.
Yeah.
Right? So, because what happens is, if you don't know the whole story, right, and if you can get something wrong,
Right.
a lot of us,
Yeah,
and
sure.
we're quick to do that.
Yeah.
You're She was calm.
Oh yeah,
She was
she's
she was
them.
she was she was bubbly, right?
Oh.
But she was bright enough,
Mm-hmm.
right, to compartmentalize. So that shows great leadership,
Oh,
you
thank
know.
you.
And and I didn't know at that time that it was run by a Latino
Uh,
woman, you know, and because it's rare,
mm-hmm.
right, in our community that we see brown or
Mm-hmm.
black people in CEO positions of major corporations.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know, you run a major corporation,
I know.
right? Like I was talking to Dr. Burks recently, and I
Oh, I
said, "Do
love
you
her.
understand how wonderful it is, right? Like you run a $500,000 corporation."
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, people don't understand,
It's a big deal.
how many employees you have,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when one goes off the rail,
Yeah.
they don't realize how much responsibility that
Yeah.
you have.
Yep.
It's more than just a doctor,
Mm.
right? It's more than just the secretary.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than just the janitor, but they all count and they
Everybody
all
plays a
matter,
role, man. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and and you are doing an amazing job
Thank you.
so far, and it's hard, you
Yeah.
know.
Yep. But the people I work with, they recharge me. It just that's why the believing in the power of community is also believing in the power of people and just everybody. The people I grew up with in the hood, where some are still my best of friends to this day, and that's why you can talk to people from the hood or corporate, because I see the good in everyone. Everybody's played a role in where I am today, and so I have this special
And
love
I've
for
heard that
all of that.
consistently about
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
And that's why I lit up. Like consistently, they're like, she always did a good.
yeah.
I'm like, hold on, I'm silver lining man. Like what do you mean I gotta share the
Oh, I see the
spotlight?
good.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's all I kept hearing. Like she wants to do good.
Yeah,
She is
yeah.
doing
There's so
good.
much
She
potential. Yeah.
sees good.
And
You
in
know,
our health center, I mean, we've got 450 colleagues, and there's such a deep commitment to our mission and
150 colleagues already.
450 colleagues.
How fast and how long have you been open?
So we opened doors July 1st of 2020, right in the mix of the pandemic.
Okay.
And we were about 250 at the time. And so today we've grown to 450 from Allentown. We're also in Easton now. We're in the Poconos, from 7 sites to about 24. And we've just done tremendous work in terms of our growth, our outcomes, our engagement and trust in the community, our colleague engagement. Our culture is very rich. But it's the people who are there. Laura's a leader in our organization, so our leaders and their engagement to the mission, and many who I've worked with for a long time. I have clinicians who've served this community for over 3 decades, and they're in it for the right reasons. And there's so much magic that can happen when you kind of bottle all that energy. All my energy is shared with them, so we're dangerous together in a room. When opportunities come up, even though we got a lot going on, we're like, but we have to do it, and we find a way.
What I love about what it seems like is that your energy has been contagious throughout your organization.
We feed off each other.
Like literally, like I've never been in a space where I've seen members of your organization outside. Most of the time when they see me, it's either late at night or it's on the weekends.
Yeah.
So that means they're doing extra time.
Mm-hmm.
And they're there with a smile and a yes.
Yes.
Are you sure you've had the checkup? Do you? I'm like, what I mean? Like, no, we will check. We will make sure.
We will.
I don't have health. Don't worry. Come in and get your checkup.
Yeah.
And they're all so excited
Yeah.
to share that story, to share that enthusiasm, So 24 sites
24 sites.
in 5 years.
Yes. Yes.
That is amazing
It
growth,
really
young
is.
queen.
It really
You
is.
know what I mean? Like
It's
I said, if
incredible.
throw another cape on her, you know what I mean? Because if no, like, because that's superhero work,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's and what I love for those who didn't catch it, she's not a doctor, right?
Mm-mm.
So she cares about community, she cares about health, and she came in on the leadership side.
Mm-hmm.
Because I heard her say too, she's still squeamish around blood. I caught that.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna skip past that because Nathan not gonna be emailing me tomorrow. You know, we're gonna skip past that. Nate, I promise you, I got her. You know what I mean? But you came in your space. And I keep saying that for someone who's looking for their calling, right? You may have a space in healthcare even though you're not a doctor.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing and the leadership that you're putting on, your doctors believe in you.
Yeah. And I believe in them. And as a leader, you don't have to know everything. That's what you got that team for, right? They're the subject matter experts in those spaces, and we get to collaborate and make a lot of magic together. So very much doable.
That's part of it. You hear it in the intro. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you say that because I think where a lot of our leaders go wrong is we forget to share the space, right? I cannot,
There's plenty of room for everybody.
for all of us, right? And great ideas can come from the janitor if you allow him or her to share, right? Great ideas can come from, the doctor who may understand marketing today, right? He's like, I've been studying some stuff, right? And he may have some content managing ideas, right? Because you are not a doctor, you can now open up yourself to the flow of more ideas.
Right.
That is community health.
That's it at its finest.
At its finest. I love it. Okay. Everyone that told me to get to know her, thank you. Thank you. See, I'm sharing y'all with her, but you know what I mean? I'm going to steal her. You know what I mean? Nathan, I got a new friend. I promise you. But yes, because this is, again, like I stated in the beginning, this is what our community needs, right? Because off air, I told you I grew up in Harlem, and I knew my doctor. You know what I mean? Like I knew my doctor well enough. My mom would let him spank me. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Like he was the family doctor.
Yeah.
You know, my orthodontist. You know, when I messed up my jaw, was the guy who ran our basketball team. You know, like you know what I mean? Everyone was connected.
Yeah.
You know, so to have that is so important.
Yeah.
And like I said, we need big hospitals, right? Because if we don't have big hospital, we don't have big cure, right? So we're talking about heart disease. We're talking about cancer. We need big hospital for those.
Yeah.
But we need community health. One to detect early onset anything.
Yeah.
If we don't go into the doctor, we don't know.
That's right.
You know, my mom right now is dealing with cancer. You know, and if my sister-in-law wasn't a doctor, none of us would be going to the doctor because our neighborhood doctor died, and we went to I don't trust nobody.
Yeah.
You know, like I was telling my brother, your wife's a doctor. I could just pull down my pants and cough. He's like no. I was like, that's what they do in the physical. He's like, no. I need a doctor. She is a doctor. You know,
I know.
You know, she does general health. I generally need my help. You know, but needing something like this, where because there's so many people in your organization who have real ties to this community. So I thank you,
of course,
right, for hiring people that are connected to this community, because that's important. When you walk into a space, they that somebody's nickname sometimes. You know what I mean? And even though when you have on your corporate jacket, they know not to do that today, right? But they're proud of you. They may tap a hat or wink an eye because they know that you came from where they were. So they know they're walking into somewhere safe.
Somewhere safe, somewhere where people from all walks of life can come in and receive care, stigma free, and regardless of their circumstance. And that's the vision. And We have programs like our street medicine program that we go out to the encampments and we meet with our homeless patients and provide primary care, behavioral health services where they're most comfortable to receive care. And that's our mission, is to partner with the patient, meet them where they are, and we're here for all. I know my dad, he's very difficult to get healthcare, old school Puerto Rican, and he's fine. And, my sisters and I had a tag team on that one, because early detection is so important.
So I'm so your dad. So I get it.
You reminded me as soon as you said that, you thought of my dad.
Yeah, I am so him. So I get it. Like, that's why for me, this was an important conversation to have, because I'm sometimes, my content creator tell you, I need to practice what I preach.
Yeah.
So I need to practice going to the
Yes.
doctor more.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But I also know how important it is for people to know that you exist.
Yes. Thank you.
Right? Because they need to know that your organization exists.
We're here.
They need to know that your leadership exists, right? Because I'm telling you, there is a young Latina single mom who just put on 4 or 5 cakes.
Well, married now, but one single mom.
No, one single mom. And again, right, married now. So that
I got my husband here in this. Single.
No. Again, I want to make. We want to make sure tu esposo know that I want no problemo, papi. But seriously, there's going to be some young lady, 18, 19 years old, who felt like, I don't know if I can make it. And she's going to put her cape on, because now the CEO of Valley Health Partners, can't. Her story was my story. You know what I mean? Her glory's now my glory, right? And I may just come and get a checkup, right? And because she was willing to keep fighting and keep going. So yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing, right? Because you are wonderful. You know, your mission is wonderful, and what your team is doing for our community is wonderful. So I wish you guys continued growth and success. But I tell you, the hour goes by quickly, right? Oh, we still got it. It goes by quickly. We're 45 minutes into it. So I tell you, it goes by quickly. So I don't want to miss, right, website. How people can find Valley Health Partners, ways they can contact. First one to donate, right? Because we need to be able to raise money, right? Because we serve community. So how can they donate? One, and then how can they be served? Two. So let's start with donation.
Our website is the perfect place for both. So valleyhealthpartners.org. There is a drop down in the menu for donations, and you can see the different programs there. If you want to donate specifically to our veteran health program, or to our street medicine program, or to the health center, we have a baby store for pregnant moms. As they come to their visits, they accumulate points, and at their postpartum, they get to shop. It's all brand new items. Yep. And so we have Reach Out and Read, where we also get books for the kiddos. So at their well child visit, we're introducing the importance of literacy, and they get to go with the age appropriate book. So we have a lot of important programs that, do require that funding, so they can designate, or to the health center as a whole, because we do a lot of mission-based work. Valleyhealthpartners.org. I'm going to get our main phone number, because you can always call us as well to schedule an appointment with us.
Don't just walk in, but please do if you need to.
Yeah, walk in. Well, if you walk in as well,
they'll love you. They'll hug you. Tell them Pat sent you. Maybe I'll get a referral now. No, it's all free, so how do you get a referral? I'm just teasing. We really want you to get health care. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll walk in, right, and go get a checkup, so y'all know what it looks like. Maybe I'll sign a HIPAA waiver. So that you guys, we can do it. So that we can,
give them a view of what that looks like. Absolutely.
We'll figure that out. I'll email Nathan.
That's the guy.
Yeah.
So 610-969-4200 is our main phone number. And our folks, they'll ask you of all your needs. So dental, vision, primary care. We have pediatrics, OBGYN, chiropractic medicine. So depending on your needs, we're there to serve. Those are kind of the core services when we want to focus on prevention and early detection. Because like my dad always says, well, I don't like the hospital. Well, Dad, if you want to stay out of the hospital, go see your doctor outpatient, where we can do early screenings, early detection, keep you out of the hospital, right?
But you're not doing any emergent care right
We
now,
don't do
right?
no
Okay.
same day care if you're not feeling well. We can get you into our primary care practices. Our peds office is open 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Our children's clinic, and so we'll see sick kiddos all day long. There's access. So we want folks to call us instead of going to the emergency room, unless it's a true emergency, evenings, weekends. If you have a cold, you're not feeling well, come see us because you often don't need the ER. We're here and we know you and we're going to provide that comprehensive care that's both when you're sick and when you're doing well. And we want to make sure we're screening and understanding anything that's happening. We're catching it early on. And if we find out, hey, you have diabetes, we have nutritionists, we have care managers, we have a whole team that can work with the patient, understand where they are, to understand their eating habits now. How do we transition that for, to not impact their diabetes? And that looks different based on culture, based on where people are. So it's a journey that we can create with every patient individually.
I love that. I truly, truly love that because our community needs ways to find their pathway to health, right? I always say health as well. I should go to the doctor more, but I work out and I eat healthy. So that's my excuse.
That's a good start. Yes.
A good friend of mine rubbed my belly a couple weeks ago, and she really started my journey. Like I was like, I'm over 50 now, so you realize what you was doing at 30 isn't the same that what you can do at 50. So now we had to work. But I love that you're giving people these options and opportunities to be able to find their way, right? Because in our community, I can't speak about every community. I can only speak about our community, right? We are the last ones to go to a doctor. You know what I mean? We can find some Vicks.
Not the Vicks.
We can find
my mother
some Vicks, some Robitussin. You know what I mean? You can find all of those things. But we are not going to the doctor.
And that's okay if you're feeling sick, but at least one annual well visit a year. That one annual well visit, some blood work, can tell you a lot about your health, and maybe you're doing great, you stay on the right path, but maybe there's some shifts to be made, and establishing that rapport with your doctor. We also have a mental health program. We have psychiatrists, we have behavioral health specialists. Huge mental health stigma in our community. I know I grew up in a Latino household, but oh my gosh, so much power, and be able to have a therapist, someone to talk to. We all could benefit from that. So we have therapists integrated in our primary care practices.
Oh, that is
where no one even needs to know why you're there to see the doctor. No one even needs to know you're there to see the therapist. And your doctor can collaborate with the therapist. So we're taking care of both your physical and your mental health, a whole person approach. I'm a big fan. I've seen a therapist for the last 2 years, and she's been life-changing, and so we all can benefit.
That is so awesome. My son has been telling me I need to go see a therapist forever, but I do therapy, so I'm like, I'm an expert in happiness, so I'm always that's been a blessing. But my son's always, but you need therapy too.
Everybody does.
I'm like everyone needs an outlet. You need a healthy outlet. So so if therapy is your healthy outlet, I say find that. But mental health is definitely something that we don't talk about in our community. We're the community that had the crazy uncle in upstairs. Where autism is something that we didn't deal with for a long time. You know what I mean? So mental health stigmas. Especially I'm glad that it's starting to come out with some of our athletes because it allows now some of our everyday people to address, hey, I've been depressed.
Yes.
I've been anxious.
Yes.
Because these are
I'm
things.
So glad as well.
Yeah, these are things. A basketball player, Michael Beasley, came in and out the NBA, and he was like, if mental health was something that we addressed 10 years ago, I might have still had a career.
That's right.
You
That's
know,
right.
so I'm grateful
Yes.
that you guys have
Yes.
integrated
Yes.
mental health, because that is so huge. Because that's privacy.
Yes.
You know, you can walk into and people thinking you just
And
going to
we've
get a
had
physical.
patients tell us that. I'm so glad. Like, my husband doesn't know why I'm coming here. I'm going to see the doctor, but they can come see their therapist. And some have actually then gone back to eventually tell their husband because they're doing so good and they feel so good and they want their husband to do it as well, or their child, whatever it is. So a lot of power in therapy. It's very so it's accessible. We have access. And we have our Center of Hope, which is where we have our psychiatrist. So if there's a need for more, then we have that service. But in the primary care setting, sometimes it's just that they're.
I just love that. Seriously, that anonymity that someone can have,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to be able to walk in there and get that service. You know, I'm hoping more people are listening to this so that they can go and find that service. Like even if you don't use them for anything else, walk in there and get some health care, get some mental health care. We got some people that got some questions that can be answered over a health pump. It's like like that. Because a lot of us don't walk in because when you walk into a space that isn't a doctor's office, then it's even more of a
It has
stigma.
that stigma, right?
You know what I mean?
See, and you go in doctor's office, you go for that annual well visit, and at the well visit, you can with just a doctor say, I'm interested in seeing a therapist, or you could just call our main line. Yeah, I would like to see a therapist. But if you're coming in the primary care setting, you then come back there for that appointment, same place.
That is
Our
that
children's
is
clinic,
genius.
we have it as well. We have behavioral health specialists in our children's clinic for pediatrics. Huge help for the community.
That is so genius. Like, so again, right? They picked the right person for the job, right? Someone that understand. And again, a lot of times we think when leading a health partnership, it needs to be led by a doctor, and doctor so and so. But sometimes it needs to be led by someone who can actually lead with their heart, you know, because and someone that understands what her community needs, because doctor so and so, and not to say anything against any doctors, you know, because I was blessed, Doctor Firas Ito, who just left us, was one of my. He was a rapper on my record label 25 years ago.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? So I we he was a doctor that understood community. You know what I mean?
And our clinicians, they understand community.
So to have someone who can really understand the language that the community is speaking, and it's not always verbal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those nonverbal cues, those things that goes on in the home, because, like you said, you've been a mom who was on food stamps at one time, so you can spot when someone's malnourished, right? Something that a doctor may never have experienced because they didn't live that. So I think your leadership in that role and actually leading a neighborhood health care center, is so important. So thank you. Thank you so much for stepping into your greatness. Thank you for, going against your original no, right? Thank your big sister, right, for the leadership, that she provided. Thank your mentor,
Forever thankful,
for seeing something in you, right? Because sometimes it takes someone to see something in us that we don't see in ourselves.
Yep.
You know what I mean? When I put out my first book, it wasn't because I put out my first book. My mentor's wife started putting the book together. She's like, I'm halfway through this book. I'm like, no, that's not what I want. I'm like, I'll do it myself. And now I'm in it. Now I'm in a book. She's like, well, I'm like, man, but sometimes it takes someone believing in your greatness, but then you have to step into
You gotta step in, put in the work.
You have to step into
haven't rested in I don't know how many years now.
And then have, and I heard a spouse, having a supportive
Yes,
spouse,
yes,
is
absolutely.
definitely important.
Yeah.
So, shout out
Shout
to
out
the
to the
husband.
hubby. Yes,
You know what I
he's the
mean?
best.
Yeah. So we want, one of the things that I've been celebrating, right, is love in our community. Even though I'm unfortunately not married, you know what I mean? You know, I celebrate others' love, right? Because I understand it's
That partnership is
it's
important.
important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if you didn't have that partnership at home,
Yeah.
it'd be hard for you to bring that partnership,
Absolutely. And we
to
have
the
three
world.
boys, my daughter, the three boys, and it's busy, it's sports, and you name it. And so he helps to keep it all balanced.
Oh wow! So it's 4 kids now.
Four kids, my stepson, and then my three kids. Yeah.
Wow.
So four. Yeah.
4 kids, CEO, mom, wife. How many? Throw the capes on. Throw the capes on, right? We want people to really understand like how awesome this is. You know what I mean? There was a movie back in the day called Just a Little Girl from the IRT. It was a Brooklyn movie. It was this little girl from Brooklyn that came to leadership, right? We may have to do, what I mean, just a little girl, what I mean, from Pembroke.
Oh my gosh.
We might have to do your movie, you know what I mean?
No, please.
For real, Netflix and chill, right? So, you know what I mean? To the Veronica movie, right? No,
Please
because,
no.
no, because it really is, right? Because people think that wealth is only dollars, right? This is a wealth story, right? Because um, your kids can be inspired, right? I know your husband is inspired. You know, um, your sister who inspired you, I bet you she's inspired now. You know what I mean? Because she knew I lit this candle and watch how look how bright it's burning now, right? Your mentor who walked this path with you, I know he's inspired,
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
right? The the lady, right, who told you that you can go home for that final because you worked hard, she's inspired, right? Because you didn't see this,
Yeah. Wow.
right? You didn't. There was when you had that beautiful little girl, at 18, you didn't see yourself as the CEO of
Never.
a health partnership, right?
Mm-mm.
This journey was, God's calling for you,
Yep.
and along this journey, right, there are different people that you don't probably remember that you also get to inspire again, right? Those lights that lit the path for you to walk, you get to light on the way back.
Mm. Yeah, thank you for that. I'm learning to embrace that and learning to open up about my story and that I've been pretty
Yes.
private about, but
Yes.
this was right, yeah.
Because it's not just inspiring, right? It's uplifting, right? There's someone right now, and I don't want to stay there, but I do want to give it there. That you had a child and one of those got, the oldest before the husband, you went to prison.
Yeah.
That's another reason to give up. You know what I mean? Like that is hard.
Yeah.
I can tell you because I made some mistakes in the past. I thank my children's mothers for those mistakes and those times.
He would say the same. My daughter's father.
You know what I mean. I was an absentee.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean. My youngest kids don't remember though, but my older kids do.
Yeah.
So I made it a point to never miss the younger kids.
Yes.
Like I've never missed a game or
Yeah.
practice or
Yep.
what I mean. Or recital. Like why are you sitting here? No other parents here. It's like they don't realize
They
I
don't
missed
know.
it
That's
for
right.
the other
Gotta
one.
make
So I
it
don't.
count.
Everything counts.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that you sharing that real vulnerable part because you could have skipped over that. But there's some I wanted to point that out because there's another child who I was going to throw a cape on because you overcame that too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You overcame that too, and it seems like you overcame it with a smile, right?
It's all meant to be. My daughter's great, and her dad's out now and doing great. I'm so proud of him, and he's present in her life, and so all good. Everything works out.
Yeah, I mean, and then you know it's what it should have been, and I'm glad that you're grateful. So again, because the hour goes by quickly, I'm on. Thank you. Um, I want you to give them the website again, and then I'm going to ask you to do what all of our guests have done with us, and that's say my personal manifesto.
Okay,
So
so
first of
valleyhealthpartners.org.
okay, valleyhealthpartners.org. Make sure you go there to donate. Make sure you go there to get checked out, and if you need some mental health stuff, you have a private space to walk in without anyone knowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go in, say, I need a checkup, and then you can give them the wink, wink, right? Mental check. You know what I mean? So give them the wink, wink, you know, and then I'm going to ask you to say my personal manifesto with
Okay.
me. I'm going to say it for you real quickly
Okay.
because it's going to be hard to remember.
Okay.
And then I'll do a call and response.
Okay.
Right? My personal manifesto is simple. I love me. I'm worthy. Some people may not like me, but I don't care because the people that matter will be glad that I'm here.
I love
So
it.
we're going to do this in call and response.
Okay.
I love me.
I love me.
I'm worthy.
I'm worthy.
Some people may not like me,
Some people may not like me,
but I don't care
but I don't care
because the people that matter
because the people that matter
will be glad that I'm here.
will be glad that I'm here.
And yes, we are glad that we got to spend this hour with Veronica Gonzalez. We are glad that we got to talk about Valley Health Partners. We are glad that we got to throw so many capes on this superhero. I'm telling you, Superman, Batman, all of them mans, Wonder Woman, they all want a cape from her. You know, I'm glad that we got to inspire someone. Because I don't care what anyone says. Today, someone was inspired. Today, someone realized I can make it. Today, someone, yes, today, someone realized that my ministry, my mission is real.
Mm.
You know, so I thank you for
Thank you for having me.
truly being here. Like
Thank
this
you.
is awesome. and shout out, I'm gonna give a shout out. Big shout out to Jose because he was really
That's
on me
my
about
guy,
this.
Jose.
You know, he was really he's like, I cannot believe you don't know her. You know, and you know, 'cause I'm like, I got her. I scheduled one. I got her on the calendar. So yeah, you know, he was really one of the people that really thinks you're awesome. You know, of course he's
as
doing
he
great
is.
work.
Yes.
You know, he's one of my pride and joys.
Yeah.
You know, when he came home, I was blessed that he came home, and I've been working with him since he came home. You know,
Good
but
people, man.
and great people. But he screams about your greatness. So we are awesome and grateful to have you. So this was another episode. Next week we have President and Dream Brown on. So we're going to talk some school district, school board stuff. But make sure you go to Valley Health Partners. You know, make sure you learn more about this awesome and amazing woman. Make sure you donate to her team. And when you see them, tell them, you know, you don't have to be perfect. You just got to get started. Yes.
That was awesome.